So how about we start with your name?
Derek.
Uh-huh. So your last job, well, I don't see anything listed.
I used to work at a baldimization plant.
Baldimization?
Oh, yeah. You see, the Japanese claim it increases sexual potency tenfold. They call it pa-pa-pesa.
Really?
Yeah.
So you quit that job?
Actually, I believe I was fired from that job.
Oh.
Well, there was a murder of a supervisor, nothing proven. I just felt it was better to move on.
There's something about you. It's a good something, though. Definitely a good something.
Ah, thank you, Shannon. If you're wondering, I did get the job. My name is Derek.
And I'm Shannon.
And we are your hosts for that Groovy Scoobcast, the go-to audio hub for all things Scooby-Doo. Today we're watching an unconventional episode for this podcast.
It's a Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. It's the specific episode is Shaggy Busted.
And yeah.
That's what we have to say.
It's hard to talk about just because it's not a Scooby-Doo episode.
Now, I know what you guys are probably already thinking, that we're just going to sit here and bust on it because we probably didn't like it. We did.
It's just hard to talk about.
It's not, like Derek just said, it's not a Scooby-Doo episode.
So don't go into it thinking you're going to be watching a Scooby-Doo mystery and the gang catch a monster. It's not that.
It's not children approved.
Oh yeah, no. Your children should not watch this. Before we get into it, though, we are going to kick off the Mystery Machine Match, our weekly trivia competition where Shannon and I try to figure out which one of us knows Scooby-Doo better than the other.
Now, last episode, we had lost our score sheet.
Yes. But now we have it. And adding the points that we each earned from last week, we are now sitting with me with 22 points and Shannon with 28.
Hey,
you can still lose.
That's what you're banking on.
I am banking on it, and I am, yeah. Your lead is good for now.
I'm really not trying to eat chocolate-covered anything.
Let's just go with it. Shannon, as always, you can ask the first question today.
Davy Jones gets help from Mystery Inc. at blank castle. Briarwood or Hagglethorn?
Hagglethorn.
Yes.
Here is your first question. Scooby-Doo falls into a toy duplicating machine in the blank zombie chase. No Face or White Lace?
No Face.
You are correct.
Scott Innes did the voice of Scooby-Doo and what other character in Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase?
I think Shaggy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's your second question. What Murder, She Wrote star is one of Daphne's heroines? I don't know anything about Murder, She Wrote, so I have no clues for you. And there's no options, so.
There's no options?
Mm-mm.
Murder, She Wrote. Do they mean, who does Daphne look up to?
Just Daphne's...
Heroes?
Yeah, I guess Daphne's heroines, yeah. Like a female hero, yeah.
Would you know it? Is it ever mentioned?
I don't even know what episode this is referring to. I have no idea.
I don't have a guess. I really don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Are you going to forfeit it?
Yeah.
Her name is Angela Lansbury.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I could not help you there. What's your last question for me today?
What pink feline is one of the announcers for Scooby-Doo and the All-Star Laugh Olympics?
I think it's Snagglepuss.
Yeah.
Yay! Here is your last question. What is the name of the villainous masked wrestler from the Scooby-Doo movie? Marcos or Zarkos?
Zarkos.
You are correct.
We just played that video game.
Yeah, I figured you would know it based on the video game. So today I collected 3 points. You got 2, finishing our totals at 25 for me and 30 for you.
Yay.
Yay. So we'll see what happens the next time we play this game. Moving on to Shaggy Busted.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. The premise for this episode is coming from Scoobypedia. Shaggy and Scooby are arrested for alleged possession of marijuana. The gang hires Harvey Birdman to defend them. So based on that premise, you should know instantly this is not an actual Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah.
Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, for those who don't know, it's kind of an Adult Swim Cartoon Network spin-off of the original Birdman. And it kind of puts him into the context of being an attorney, and he represents cartoon characters. Like, they're all cartoons. And he represents a lot of, like, classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like Johnny Quest, I think the Jetsons at one point, the Flintstones. Like, there's a lot of different clients that you'll recognize from the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons on this show if you watch it. If you're interested in this show, it's on Hulu. That's where we watched it today. So, Shannon, what were your, like, overall thoughts on this episode as just something to watch, not as necessarily a Scooby-Doo episode?
Well, let me say this to start with, is I'm not a huge Adult Swim fan.
Yes, you did say that before.
So when I found out it was Adult Swim, I
kind of groaned a bit.
Yeah, I wasn't real excited. It was a good episode. I don't necessarily know if I'd watch the rest of the series, but it was a good episode. I think it gives like kind of a, I don't want to say like fresh spin, but kind of that. Like, you get to see characters. It's kind of one of those, if you ever watch the spoofs for like Disney stuff of like what happens after the happily ever after, it kind of seemed like something like that. Like, it's not canon by any means, but it's something fun to kind of play with because everybody always says that Scooby and Shaggy smoke weed. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of something funny to be like, aha, what if they did and they got busted? Like,
right.
It's a fun little thing.
Because it puts the cartoon characters in, like, a real-world scenario, and it kind of, like, puts a lot of the characters in really crass adult situations. Like, you know, at one point when they visit the jail, for instance, and we see the Jetson family visiting George, who's behind the glass, being like, I'll be home soon, kids. Yeah. Like, it makes you wonder, like, what is happening to these characters? Like, we're so used to seeing them in a really classic, wholesome kids world, and then they're all just pulled from that and put in this, again, Adult Swim crass world where the jokes are really raunchy. Mm-hmm. It's those jokes that, like, you know, teenagers and, you know, young adults are going to probably find funny just because of how random and zany they are.
And I'm also trying to think, because, like, mostly Adult Swim comes on at, like, 1 a.m.
They actually start at, like, 8 or 9 o'clock now.
Really?
Yeah. Okay,
well, when Adult Swim first came on, I feel like they came on at, like, midnight. Like, it was late. Or did I always just go to bed at a reasonable time?
I felt like when I was growing up, it was at 10 o'clock that it started.
Okay. I've always been a good kid, so I don't know. Like,
whenever I watched it as a kid, I feel like the first show that would come on was Futurama. Uh-huh. When I was growing up, at least, and it changed gradually to like King of the Hill and Family Guy. I know that Family Guy used to come on after Futurama, and then they switched out Futurama with King of the Hill. And when I was a teenager, that's what I was always watching late at night. You know, school night was King of the Hill, Family Guy. Then they also switched in American Dad, which I also liked, so...
Well, because I was going to say, like, I know I used to, like, fall asleep with my TV on, and then I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and Adult Swim would be on. So it was always, like, that weird shit, like, that 1 a.m.
Like the Squidbillies.
Yeah, like, the real weird stuff that Adult Swim plays. So that
Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Yeah. So it was always something that I was like, Adult Swim is weird, man. Yeah. And, like, I guess I never realized that, like, Futurama was also part of Adult Swim.
It wasn't produced by them, but it was shown
on them.
Yeah.
Because that was, like, I always just thought Adult Swim is so weird. Like, it comes on so late at night. So if I was watching this at, like, 1 a.m, or even if I, like, came home drunk at 1 a.m, like, sure, this is something I'd throw on to watch and I'd laugh. To sit down at, like, 2 p.m. on a Sunday, it's weird.
Yeah. So, you know, if you guys are interested in watching it, I personally really enjoy the show just because I love Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and it's just weird seeing them out of normal setting like this. But anyway, we're going to get back to Shaggy Busted. So the episode opens up, and we immediately see recycled backgrounds and animation from the Scooby-Doo Where Are You cartoon. And I think that's pretty typical across all of the Harvey Birdman shows, where they recycle assets from the original cartoon that they're featuring.
Just to make it more, like, legit.
Yeah, so, in this instance, we're seeing, like, a go back sign with a skull on it, and we're seeing the Mystery Machine driving through this, like, bayou kind of area. Some of it's edited, too. We do see Shaggy and Scooby explicitly driving the van, when, like, in a normal cartoon, we would have seen, like, Fred, Daphne, and Velma in the front. And they also look a little different than the rest of the artwork we're seeing.
Yeah.
I think we see the house from the Haunted House Hang-Up episode with the Headless Spectre, and they get pulled over by a cop. Shaggy, like, looks out the window. He's in the passenger side, which means Scooby was driving.
That kind of made me laugh, too.
Yeah, like, that was kind of strange. So he looks out the window. He's like, will you be cool?
Like, it was just so random.
Keep in mind, these are not the normal representations of the gang. Like, before we continue, like, this is not our normal Mystery Inc.
No. These are doppelgangers that are filling in for the gang. But then it cuts to something that you would see on the show Busted. And
or,
it's
like, cops.
Yeah, and it's like the,
like, the car footage. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the car head cam, or, the dash cam. And you see the cop walking up, and he's like, can you turn the music down? And so it's the whole, like, little spiel.
Mm-hmm. We do establish that when this occurs, we're also, like, seeing, like, the actual dialogue between them, like, written, like, in subtitles.
We also see that this happened at 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, specifically 1:27, so it's late at night. The cop asks them where they're headed tonight, and Shaggy explains that they're headed to meet the gang at the old cotton mill to catch a big green monster, and they're going to try and catch it.
Yeah, because he's a real fatty, man.
Yes. The cop is just like, a big green monster, and he's like, yeah, like a real fatty, man.
And keep in mind, the entire time, they're cracking the
They're
fuck
giggling.
up.
Yes, they're just giggling. And really uncharacteristically, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, Scooby and Shaggy giggle.
They're giggle, but they...
In this episode, it's brought to, like, an all-time high.
Yeah, it was exaggerated for the story.
Play on words, an all-time high.
Ah, ha, 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 ha. And then, what was it the cop said? He said that they were driving a little erratically, and I noted that Scooby kind of, like, quietly, so the cop didn't hear him necessarily, but when he said you were driving a little erratically, and Scooby says, "Wow, okay." I'm just like, oh, fuck.
Same.
Oh, Scooby and your attitude.
He was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Right. The cop does say that they need to get out of the car, and then there's kind of like a pause, and then Shaggy just yells to Scooby, "Punch it!" Which reaffirms that Scooby's driving.
Yeah.
I like that the cop is, like, not concerned about that. Like, I mean, I guess in this universe, maybe that's typical, because I guess Hanna-Barbera characters are just typical citizens,
yeah.
and yeah, so... Because we do see Magilla Gorilla as a prisoner at the prison later on. So, yeah, I guess animals in this universe do drive vehicles and act like normal people.
I mean, if you can prove that, like, you have a consciousness and you make, like, conscious decisions based on, like, empathy and
you are capable of voting.
Yeah. Which we've talked about, that Scooby can
Does Scooby
vote.
have rights? Yes. So, I mean, yeah, I guess Scooby is able to drive legally here. So Shaggy yells to Scooby, "Punch it!" And they just start dashing for it.
And the cop starts shooting at them.
Yeah, he pulls out his gun, starts shooting. I think he shoots like 3 times. And I'm wondering, like, is that protocol? Like, are you trying to shoot out their tires or something? What are you doing? So we can either assume that they either got shot out with the tires or there was a chase and they eventually, got caught. Either way, they were arrested.
Yeah.
We go through the Harvey Birdman theme song. I love it. I sing it every single time it's on.
He does.
Shannon can confirm. And now we see Harvey. He is in his office. For those who don't really know what Birdman looks like, he's just a big, broad-shouldered man. In this show, he's wearing a suit like an attorney would. He's wearing his mask. It's like a blue mask with black eyes, like right. And then he has wings. He has like bird wings. He has eagle wings. And he's at his desk. He's looking for a file. And he's asking his assistant, Avenger, who is just an actual eagle. And he's like, okay, do you know where this file is? It's all yellow and official looking.
He bends over and it's in his pants.
Is it?
Yeah, because he bends over and he goes, it's yellow, it's very official looking. And when he bends over and his pants kind of fall down a bit, you see that, like, it's like an undershirt, but it's yellow.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And then he pulls up his pants to cover it. And I'm like, okay.
Harvey does say that he needs to get a clerk. Avenger is offended by this and goes and flies into his cage. Harvey comforts him, saying that, you know, we just need an assistant. Like, he's not a partner like you.
Does Avenger also have rights? Like, does Avenger make money?
At one point, yes. Yeah, because he does leave and go and start working at a different law firm. Yeah. There is an episode where that happens.
So, animals do have rights,
yes.
Guys.
So...
Excuse me, call PETA.
No, don't, actually. Please don't. So, Harvey ends up slamming the door, ironically, and just like, all right, good night. Leaves Avenger at the office, even though Avenger is, I guess, an employee.
So you just locked an employee in the cage and was like, deuces, good night.
Can you imagine being locked into Rite Aid at night and just be like, all right, see you in the morning?
I would die.
So we cut to the next day. Already, they have people being interviewed for this clerk position, which was really quick. When you think about it, I didn't even think about that. So he hits his intercom. He's like, Debbie, please send in the next candidate. Debbie doesn't respond. And he's like, Debbie!
Hate.
I was like, wait, what? Hate? Oh.
Like, that's all Debbie responds with is just, hate. And then Peanut walks in.
Yeah, so we meet Peanut. He is this show's version of Bird Boy, I believe his name was, from the original Birdman cartoon. So he looks exactly like Birdman in terms of costume. He has wings. I think they're like steel wings. I don't think they're real.
Yeah, no, his aren't real. They're steel. But
he has like the same mask and everything like that.
Yeah.
So he walks in and Harvey's like, take a seat. So Avenger is typing some stuff. We don't really know what he's typing.
But he clicks the button like 3 times.
Yes.
He goes like, is that your bird? Can I touch it?
Does it bite? Ding! Harvey asks him his name. He says, Peanut.
Peanut's fucking weird. That
yes.
was the note that I wrote down.
Yes. So they go into the interview. Harvey acknowledges that his resume doesn't have any work experience, to which Peanut explains that he used to work at a baldimization plant. As you'll remember from our intro not too long ago, this baldimization process is supposed to, according to the Japanese, increase sexual potency 10-fold. It's called Papapaza. What was your reaction to that initially when you listened to that explanation?
I'm going to be 100% honest. Because you know how we always joke that you were born in Japan?
Yes.
My first thought...
Joke, I was born in Japan. Correction, Shannon.
So my first thought was, can we call your dad and see if you've ever heard of Papa?
Shannon!
And that was my first thought. Was like, have mom and dad heard about Papa?
That's disgusting.
I mean, you were born in Japan.
So, while this interview is going on, it is cutting over to Avenger, who's just doing his own work. And I noted at one point, he's going through a filing cabinet, and he pokes his head out for a second, and he got a sticky note stuck to his face.
Which was kind of cute.
And the sticky note wrote, "B. Rubble, call me, damn it." As in Barney Rubble from the Flintstones.
With the phone number 555-0161.
Go ahead and call it if you like, guys. We're not gonna, but
I don't think it'll work because it has 555 as the first 3 numbers.
I don't know.
I don't think that those are legit numbers. But anyway, go ahead and call it in your local area. See if there's a B Rubble.
A phone call comes in. Harvey answers it, and it's who we assume is Fred Jones. Fred is telling Harvey that, you know, his friends got arrested. They need representation. And Harvey says that he'll need to come in first thing in the morning tomorrow. And something I know that was kind of funny. You know how, like, when someone's talking on the phone in, like, a cartoon or a show, They always have that, like, muffled sound, like the murmur. Yeah, exactly. So when this is going on, it's actually Avenger just sitting on the table doing that. So it's not actually Fred. But something that was kind of cool, in my opinion, is the fact that Fred, who in this episode is being voiced by Frank Welker is also voicing Avenger.
So
Fun
he really
fact.
is talking to Fred.
Yeah. I do wonder if Frank Welker is Avenger throughout the rest of the series. I think that would be so awesome. Good for Frank.
I don't see why he wouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree.
He ends the phone call with one night in the cellar isn't going to do anyone harm. And then it cuts to the jail cell with Scooby and Shaggy, like, in each other's arms, shivering like normal.
They're being surrounded by Redbeard the pirate, the ghost clown, and Charlie the haunted robot. And Redbeard and the ghost clown take off their masks and like, do you remember me? And me? And then Charlie, the robot, starts, like, trying to take off his helmet. And he's like, and he's not getting it off. And the other two are, like, trying to help him take it off.
My biggest question in this scene was everyone else that we see in the jail cell always has on, like, the red jail uniform, but for some reason the three of them are still in their costumes.
That was funny. And another weird thing to note, and here's my thing with this show, or this episode in particular, I'm going to assume that this takes place in a completely alternate Scooby-Doo universe, you know, if we're talking canon. Mm-hmm. This is not canon to anything we've ever seen. Because Charlie the haunted robot actually was a real robot.
Oh,
there was no one in the costume. Yeah, it was actually a robot being controlled by somebody.
Huh.
So this robot, I'm assuming, is just a person in a robot costume.
Just hanging out.
Yep, so this is a completely non-canon Charlie the haunted robot.
All right. When Harvey hangs up the phone, he looks at Peanut and he goes, okay, that's your first lesson
in lawyering.
And then Peanut just kind of looks at him and doesn't say anything.
Like, he's holding out his hand to Peanut. Like,
yeah, Harvey's
it's supposed to imply that he's giving him the job.
Yeah. And then he goes, you got the job. You're a clerk.
The job is yours. Oh, well, it's great. Thank you.
Do I get a gun?
Sure. And he does get a gun. Because in the next scene, he's rolling around the office like a spy.
Yeah.
With his gun and just pointing it at shit.
Like a loaded gun. Harvey, he just said that he basically admitted that he killed his supervisor at the I can't say it suddenly.
Baldimization.
At the
the baldimization plant.
Yeah. Like,
Harvey's not supposed to be smart, Shannon. This is not a show about a smart man.
How did he pass the bar?
I don't know, because he's going through his law book out in the background while Peanut's rolling around the office, and he's just like, larceny, you're never going to use that. He's just going through all these terms. He's like, nah, you're not going to use that. You're good. So, do you have any questions? So that's pretty much it. And then the intercom turns on. Peanut points his gun at it, and Debbie says, your 10 o'clock is here. Fred Jones. Harvey evidently forgot that he had this client. He's like, Fred Jones. Send him in. Fred Jones! How are you, buddy? Fred looks tired.
Fred is not okay.
So he comes in and he's like, I'm okay. Could be better.
Like, I'm going to talk about it throughout this episode, but the artwork for Fred, and then specifically for Shaggy, and then also Scooby, is just wild. They are not okay.
Yeah. Fred explains that he said last night, and Shannon and I kind of debated this for a little bit. We were assuming that he was supposed to say the other night just because the timelines don't add up if he says last night. But anyway, he says that Shaggy and Scooby got arrested while they were out solving a mystery. He mentioned the fact that they were a gang, because that's what he calls everybody. And Harvey looks at Peanut and is like, oh, gang stuff, listen up. And he's using a lot of, like, gang terms, like, oh, did one of your fellas ever get a shot in the bobo? Is that what he said?
Yeah, he goes, well, because wow. Because Fred says something about being out in the cotton mill, and he goes, oh, where one of your members or something gets shot in the bobo? And he goes, no. Scooby and Shaggy got arrested. Like, for Fred, this is the most traumatizing thing that has ever happened.
He looks traumatized,
He is not okay. Like, he is traumatized. And he's like, no, Scooby and Shaggy got arrested. Like, this is news. This is big. And Harvey's just like, so no one got shot? Like...
And, Fred basically says we need to go visit them. And he's like, all right, I'll take the case. But first, and then he grabs onto Fred's ascot,
Ascot.
and Harvey says, "You're going to have to lose the colors." And it's funny because they cut to the next scene where they're entering the jail, and they've got Velma and Fred within view behind Harvey. Daphne is following behind as well.
Yeah.
But we initially see Velma and Fred, and because Velma's wearing her orange sweater, it's just kind of funny to think that, like, orange is their gang color.
Yeah, I made that note too. I said orange is their gang color because you have Fred's ascot, you've got Velma's sweater, Daphne's hair is orange.
Mm-hmm. It's just silly.
Yeah.
It's a silly joke. They pass the Jetson family. Like I said earlier, George is like behind the glass and going like, "I'll be home soon." And they are also being berated by the other prisoners, because I guess Harvey has lost all of these other prison people their cases, because they're like, "Go to hell, Birdman." And he's like, "Hello, fellas." Like, he's so passive about it. Like, "Hey, guys." They arrive at Shaggy and Scooby. They are behind the glass. They're about to have a conversation. And Harvey says, "All right, so which one of you is Shaggy?" And Shaggy goes, "I am." And he's like, "All right, that's your street name. What's the name your mamas gave you?" And like, they're looking at each other. Shaggy and Scooby are looking at each other. And then they just start giggling. Like we said before, like uncharacteristically giggling. Like, it's just there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's really weird. And Velma says, "Sorry, like, that's just the way they are. Like, they're just being goofy. That's what they're like."
Well, and so Harvey goes, "So they weren't," and then someone walks by and goes, "Hi."
And Fred's like, "Nope, just stupid."
Which is fair.
Yes. Harvey then goes back to the courthouse.
Well, wait. So then they're all still standing there right after Fred says that, no, they're just stupid. And Peanut goes and looks at Daphne and just kind of is like, that's sexy.
So sexy. Peanut wants to fuck.
He wants to fuck Daphne hard.
Baldimization.
Yeah.
Papa. So we cut to the next scene. Harvey's back at the courthouse, and he is meeting with Evelyn Spyro Throckmorton. I don't think this is a really recurring character, but he is the prosecution attorney in this episode. He does not like Birdman, evidently, and he knows Birdman's game when he's walking up to him like, "Is this about those two buffoons that you're representing?" Because Harvey's like asking him questions like, "So where'd you go to school? And, like, did your buddies ever call?"
Yeah, that poor guy got beat up everywhere he went.
He went to Choate for undergrad, and then they cut to a flashback of him being hit with baseball bats by his peers. And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, how about law school? I went to Yale." And it cuts back, and he's also at Yale being hit by the same students with baseball bats again. But his attempt to kind of get on Evelyn's good side and like kind of give him a break is not going to work. Evelyn's just like, "You better put ties on them." And like, he just kind of goes on a dramatic rant.
Yeah.
This guy is a really like theatrical man. You can just kind of tell with his mannerisms and his voice. Like, he reminds me a lot of our theater director from high school, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like definitely when he's in court, like he's dancing around and yeah.
Yeah, he's a silly theatrical man.
He's a lot to handle.
Yes, I would not want to be anywhere around this person.
So like our director from high school.
So, the trial begins, and Harvey opens, his like opening statement. He is saying, like, "Who are we to judge these two fine young men?" And just be like, "We are sitting in judgment of you." And I'm thinking to myself, we are. We're
the
judging.
jury.
Well, no, I'm thinking like you and me.
Oh.
Like, we are. We're judging this episode. And anything that Scooby and Shaggy do. Like,
that's literally my job.
That's what we're doing today as an activity. And then the judge tells Evelyn to start his opening statement. Evelyn's opening statement is a reenactment of the night when they got pulled over by the cop.
It was theatrical.
It was an old-timey portrayal of what happened. So the cop pulls over Shaggy and Scooby. In this case, it's
covered wagon.
Yes, it's a wagon. Evelyn is playing Shaggy. Someone else is playing Scooby, and then there's this other guy playing the cop. And the cop is like, gentlemen, do you know why I asked you to tarry? And Evelyn's just like, why no, officer? Have we done wrong? And Scooby and Shay are like watching attentively, and then we see Peanut hitting on Daphne again. And then yeah. And then it cuts back and it shows the guy in the Scooby costume. He looks to Shaggy, he's like, Shaggy, take flight. It is the devilish apparition.
Yeah.
So this is inaccurate because actually Scooby was driving the Mystery Machine. For one. Actually, Evelyn. And, you know, then the trial kind of goes on. They call the cop to the stand, and the cop, which I will note is the same, like, style of animation and drawing as a cop would appear in the classic Scooby Where Are You cartoon. Mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of cool that they used that character. So the cop explains that what they found in the Mystery Machine included 5 or 6 pizza boxes, a bag of hair clips, some eye drops, and some incense. Harvey argues that the hairpins could have belonged to Daphne or Velma. And then also says that the incense, like, doesn't incriminate them specifically because, you know, that could really be anyone that uses that specific incense.
But eye drops and pizza, guys. If you've got it in your car, you better beware.
When I got my second car, I found an empty bottle of eye drops in my car.
Well, now you know what they were doing. I
also had a cigarette burn inside my driver's seat.
Maybe it wasn't cigarettes.
Oh, my.
Maybe Scooby and Shaggy were driving your car.
It's possible. So Velma is called to the stand. And Harvey asks her to characterize Shaggy and Scooby's behavior. And Velma says, well, they laugh when they're nervous and they're always hungry. That's pretty much it. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty much it. There's nothing else to these characters. And then Evelyn takes his turn to question Velma. He shows a bunch of stills from the Scooby-Doo Where Are You cartoon on the big screen. It shows a lot of like footage of potentially incriminating scenes where like they're picking up plants or a bunch of pauses where it's showing them like mid closing their eyes as if they're like droopy eyed and high.
And also the really funny thing that I thought was funny was
really funny thing that I thought was funny.
It was so funny. So the thing that I thought was really funny was the, like, first or second thing he shows is a picture of Shaggy uncovering a plane, and he goes, what's this from? And Velma goes, honestly, I don't remember. And my thought was, like, I remember that specific episode.
It's the scene from The Tiki Scare Is No Fair with the plane that didn't matter.
And so when she was like, I don't actually remember, I was like, yeah, because I had no fucking point in being in that damn episode.
And they also made a video. This one is original to the cartoon. It's not actually pulled from Scooby, Where Are You? It shows some smoke coming out of this room or mist or whatever. Shaggy and Scooby are shown to be talking off screen. We can't actually see them.
All we see is like a door with smoke coming out of it.
Yes, and they're laughing. They're giggling like they have been throughout this entire episode. And Shaggy's like, you know what I just realized, Scooby? Scooby Dooby. And they're like, yeah. And they're just, it's stupid. It's a really stupid scene. And Velma's like, all of this is taken out of context. You're just trying to make us look goofy and paranoid. And Evelyn goes, goofy? And it shows Shaggy in that, like, witch doctor costume that they did in The Tiki Scares No Fair. And then he goes, and then paranoid? And it shows Shaggy from the same episode when he had his arms, like, wrapped around himself. When he was on the point.
Yeah.
He actually was on drugs.
So he was on drugs, guys. We were correct. It was the poi.
But Evelyn finishes that. He's like, nothing further.
And he like spins.
Yeah, he does like a little spin and walks away, and it's fancy.
I think that's the last we see in the courtroom. It cuts to them at the bar after court.
Yes, so they're all just at the bar. Peanut is continuously harassing Daphne.
The funny thing is, though, is Daphne, like, doesn't ever look at Peanut.
Yeah, she ignores him throughout the entire thing. And the funny thing that I noticed was that Daphne only has, like, one line in this episode.
I was going to say, I don't know if she talked at all.
She did talk when they visited Shaggy and Scooby at the prison.
What'd she say?
I I think she commented with Velma when Velma said, like, they're just being goofy, like, that's just how they are. And Danny was like, yeah, they're always like that. I think that's how it played out.
Oh, okay.
It was nothing significant. Like, it was a really short line. I'm like, so why do they even bother? So Fred actually asked Harvey a really good question, in my opinion. He asked Harvey, so, like, shouldn't you have known about that tape that Evelyn played for, the court? And he should have, actually.
Well, yeah, because you have to submit that into
Discovery. Yeah. And Harvey's just like, well, there's the difference between you and me. And he's like, it kind of what set us apart from animals is product placement.
And then it switches over to them drinking a thing of Tab.
Yeah, they had a can of beer in their hand, and then it just changes to Tab, and then they just do this stupid scene. I'm not going to go into it, but...
Tab is sugar-free.
Yes, and Harvey, in a live-action sense, is in love with it.
And then it cuts back, and now he, instead of drinking Tab or beer, he's now drinking scotch.
Yes, because the bartender offers him scotch, and he's just like, oh, yeah, let's get Stinko. It's like,
no.
You have court tomorrow,
yeah,
Harvey. So... Velma suggests also while they're at the bar that they catch the monster in order to prove that that's what they were actually going to be doing that night.
I mean, my thing is, like...
I don't know if that would really hold up.
No, because, they were on the way to solve the mystery, but they were on the way to solve the mystery high.
I mean, unless they can... They would have to prove that either Scooby and Shaggy weren't high or that they just weren't in possession of anything, because they didn't find any actual marijuana in the car.
No, I mean, the most that they would have to... Honestly, this would not hold up in court because they would have done a drug test, saw that they were clean, and you would have been done. Yeah,
it's just a lot of insinuations based on Shaggy and Scooby's character. And they do end up catching the monster. Fred and Velma burst into the courtroom the next day while, Harvey's about to present some more evidence. And it's this big green monster. And
he's a real fatty.
Yes, he is a real fatty. So it turns out to be Old Man Bakov. He is a farmer at the cotton mill. I think he owns the property, actually. And, okay, this man is incomprehensible in terms of speech.
I really don't think that he was speaking. Like,
all I gathered is that kids don't wear dungarees anymore. And I also heard him say that he switched crops.
To soybeans.
Yeah, he says soybeans. And then everyone starts laughing, and I'm like, okay.
Also,
so what's the point of the monster? But
and also, Fred looks like he hasn't slept since the boys got arrested.
Fred is worried about his friends.
Like, Fred is not okay. Hashtag Fred is not okay.
So yeah, then everyone starts laughing, and then Scrappy pops up out of nowhere. He's like, da-da-da-da-da-da, puppy power! And then Avenger flies in and grabs Scrappy and flies away.
So it's insinuated that Avenger eats Scrappy? I'm good with it.
That's how the episode ends.
Yeah, it's done. There's no Scooby-Dooby-Doo. There's no however Harvey would end his episodes. It's just...
That's actually pretty typical for a Harvey episode.
Just
something random like that. Yeah.
Just puppy power.
I will say, he doesn't actually eat Scrappy. I know this because in a future episode, I think it's when Avenger does end up leaving Harvey's firm and goes to work at a different firm, and he's like packing his belongings. He is going through a box and he has Scrappy's dead body in it. This is a separate episode. We will never visit this episode, but fun fact, he didn't actually eat Scrappy, but he did kill him.
I'm still fine with that.
So, Shaggy Busted. This was hard to rate. I want to consider it like an alternative Scooby Snack-O-Meter rating because it's not a Scooby-Doo episode.
Okay, so let me say it this way. As a Harvey episode, I'd give it like a decent score. It was a pretty good episode. As a Scooby-Doo episode, I'd give it a pretty low score because it's not a real Scooby-Doo episode. So I want to stay right in the middle. I'm going to give it a 5. I'm going to stay neutral. Like, it was a good Harvey episode, not a good Scooby episode. We are a Scooby podcast. I'm going to stay with a 5. Like, it's worth watching, but if you're going into it for Scooby-Doo, it's not worth your time. But it's literally 11 minutes, so, like, it's not a huge deal.
Right. Way. It was so easy taking notes on this episode because it was quick. there wasn't really a lot going on either. So it was just an easy to digest 11-minute long episode.
And it's one of those, like, if you skip it, you're not missing anything.
Oh, yeah, because it has nothing to do with anything else Scooby-Doo related. So I'll also agree with that. I'm going to give it a 5. And it's just, I'm neutral about it because it's a bad Scooby episode. It's a good Harvey episode. And it's just hard to rate it as a Scooby-Doo episode because it's not. It's not Scooby-Doo. It's not intended for kids. These characters are not being portrayed the way they normally would be. So, yeah, I'm just going to stay really neutral because my opinions really differ based on what context we're viewing this in.
Yeah.
So, 5 from you, 5 from me, 5 altogether on that Groovy Scoobcast Scooby Snack-O-Meter.
All right.
You ready for a fun fact about this episode, though?
I am.
So, Harvey is voiced by Gary Cole.
Okay.
Gary Cole voices Fred's dad in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Oh, Mayor Jones?
Yeah, so if you kind of hear Mayor Jones's voice in Harvey or vice versa, that is why. It is the same voice actor.
That's going to ruin my favorite Scooby-Doo series.
I told you that it was going to be an interesting connection between the two shows.
Okay.
Just something to, something fun.
Yeah.
Something specific to this episode because we're never going to return to Harvey Birdman again for this podcast.
It's funny that Harvey and Avenger have and then you have Fred and his dad.
Kind of, yeah.
So that's
kind of funny. Yeah. So there's your fun fact of the week. Next week, we will be reviewing the Scooby-Doo movie of this season. Shannon, are you ready to hit the randomizer as to what we will be watching?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So next week, we will be watching Scooby-Doo, The Mystery Begins.
Yay! I haven't seen this movie in years. It's 10 years old now. Almost 10 years old.
Let me see the picture for it. I don't remember it.
I don't think you may have ever watched it. It aired on Cartoon Network. It was a TV movie.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, it actually came out on the 40th anniversary of Scooby-Doo. That's when it aired.
Okay. Would we just hit the...
We're on the 50th year right now.
The 50th. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, because it's 10 years old. Math.
Yeah. So the premise for this movie is coming from Scoobypedia. Unjustly accused of staging a spooky practical joke complete with ghosts, 4 unlikely high school students and 1 Great Dane team up to clear their good names after they are suspended from school. The kids must now solve the mystery of the haunting of Coolsville High before their parents are informed that they were expelled.
Oh.
I don't really think that's a good premise for this movie.
Okay.
It's just supposed to be a rebooted origin story.
Okay.
It's that's kind of what it is. And keep in mind, it's a TV movie as well, so it's not going to be as high quality as, say, like the theatrical live action movies we saw. Keep in mind, this is a live action, feature of the Scooby-Doo gang. I know you're going to hate the way Scooby looks in this movie. Mm-hmm. I'm not even going to show you right now because I just want it to kind of be a surprise for you.
You want my authentic opinion?
But this one is definitely an interesting piece of Scooby-Doo media, as well as its sequel.
There's a sequel?
There is a sequel, and I did not enjoy the sequel from what I remember. I'm thankful that we're watching this one first, so I guess we get to talk about this movie next week with our guest host. We'll have a great time.
Woohoo!
If you guys would like to talk to us about Shaggy Busted, Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins, anything Scooby-Doo related, honestly, find us on social media. We're on Twitter at Groovy Scoobcast, on Facebook at That Groovy Scoobcast, or on Tumblr at That Groovy Scoobcast.
You can also check out our website, www.thatgroovyscoobcast.com, or you can email us at thatgroovyscoobcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope that you enjoyed That Groovy Scoobcast.
Come back next week for Scooby Snack-filled time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.